Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. We are flirting with failure right now. I got about 4 gigs storage. 1 gig is about 20 minutes. Very rough approximation. We know how these things go. So that's what we talk about. And ain't no telling, because once it's stopped, that's when it's shown whether the recording takes or not. So, with all that communicated, here we go. So, recent conversations, kinfolk almost accuse me of being a different type of being. I say I'm not human already, but kinfolk communicate directly to me the consideration, the contemplation, the possibility of me being an angel. I say I'm a earthly being. I'm a spirit being. I'm other than an angel. I partake of this earth. So that's just part of my nature. But it's understandable. Questions like this are posed to, actually, that was numerous occasions, actually, just within the past week or so. I actually have a conversation with brethren about how every man is the devil. Not even talking about making a deal with the devil. Every man is the devil, working to make a deal, to be compromised, to make atonement, to be reconciled with God. So, and woman just observing man wrestling with himself, the divine presence within himself, and the evil tendencies and temptations within himself. So, all that being said, there are all the beings. As I'm doing the research on world civilization, the beliefs, understandings, and relationship from our different traditions, ancestors, prophets, and sages, have a knowledge, awareness, understanding, language about spirit beings beyond the senses. And further, so kinfolk talked about skin, what's it called? Skin, whatever it is, shapeshifters, skin crawlers, or whatever it is. But it can be scary stuff. We talk about jinn, and we talk about the Asuras and the Nagas and Gandhabas, and additionally, so there's all different types of beings. Science doesn't want to recognize that because it's an encroachment upon science's hegemony. Yeah, we ain't got time to play. We ain't got time to play. Whatever. So all that being said, point is, at this moment, what I'm talking about, past midnight again. This is what I'm talking about. Not to get mad. How about that? When dealing with ignorance, hostilities, treachery, genius schemes of enslavement and entrapment, and playing close and testing cool, and all them things. Not to get mad. Particularly when cats is ignorant. That's what's frustrating. Not just ignorant, but ignorant and effective. Ignorant and effective at kicking up dust and causing a distraction, taking cats off their game, not trying to do anything, just throwing mud all over the place, not giving a fuck, and being effective in deterring others from doing their productive work in this life. That's what's frustrating. So, what is recognized is that kinfolk are outside of themselves. I was talking about recently about as an adult matures in life, the adult loses itself. It has to fuse other narratives, other principles beyond one's own personal self in order to answer the challenges within life. And in doing that, becomes less of that person's self and increasing an amalgamation of other influences and further. And when those other influences are just about ambition or whatever else, it's just a very like an empty facade. It's a shell. When people invest in narratives beyond themselves that are healthy, ancestral stories, family stories, and additionally, then the shell of the person is further substantive. And there's further congruence, there's further support for the thin veil of that individual self, and there's further authenticity, positivity, energy, and further. But when a person sells out, enslaves oneself, and additionally, when a person searches for refuge in drugs, alcohol, there's an enslavement. That we talk about the spirits enslaving people. So, the point for all this is that ignorance is a form of that. That there are many kinfolk on this earth, no better or worse, but just different nature, different understanding this. There are many kinfolk on this earth who are not themselves, who are beyond themselves, who have, and that's a little bit of an absolute statement, so we have to be mindful of that. But have distanced kinsfolk selves from the true self. All right, let's be mindful about getting wordy on this. All right, I'll give an example. When somebody's drunk, they say, "Oh wait, that's not me. I was just drunk." No excuse, but that's what people say. "Oh, it wasn't me." No, please don't take offense. I didn't mean it. I was just drunk. They're admitting that they're not themselves. They were under the influence of some other entity, and some other influence, some other phenomenon. Some people call that influence being in the spirits. And when you observe people in that state of being intoxicated, drunk, you can see the evidence of chains of people being like puppets, like some other entity, just kind of like doing all that. They're being puppetried by the spirits. We can call it evil spirits, we can call it benevolent spirits, whatever, but it's otherworldly. It's beyond the visible senses, and it's actual. So that's drugs, that's alcohol, that's overeating, that's sex, all those things. People are being possessed. Oh, we're getting back into that. It's never going away. And all right. So point is, when cats is acting ignorant and not caring about things and just being hired, people pay people to kick up dust. That's another form of enslavement. And that's the basic thing. Recognizing that when people are doing these things, when people are being violent, when people are being ignorant, when people are being genius plotters from the plutocratic crevices and fortified bunkers, they're all still being enslaved themselves. They're not themselves. They're enslaved by ambition, enslaved by the thirst and hunger for power, and all the other entrapments of the earthly life. No better or worse, just enslaved. So not to get mad, because getting mad and frustrated and doing that anger, that feeds those slave masters that are doing that. That's the whole purpose. And then that leads one into responding in an unfavorable way and then getting enveloped in the dust. So it helps to recognize that the people who behave in this way, again, not better or worse, but the people who are doing that are afflicted. And it's not the condescending, "Oh, poor baby, aren't they inferior," kind of thing, but generally have compassion and recognize, yo, that person is enslaved right now. They're not in control. So they might be tripping. We might have to stand in, like, whatever the nature of the challenge is, whether it's just kicking up dust, whether it's something concerned of violence or well-being. We have to make a decision, but not to get mad. Patience. So that's one thing. And that happens to all of us. That shell, it happens to all of us. So we have to make a decision about how we invest our coping mechanisms, what stories and answers we study and absorb beyond our personal selves to respond. Some people delve into Greco-Roman philosophy and just have all these different intellectual things that are provided from very elitist education to show credentials, and additionally as a way of responding and imposing challenges. And further, some people talk about family history, and I mean, people's migrations on this earth are significantly influenced by these narratives, because when somebody just talks about their family, guess what? They might not ever leave that city that they've been born and raised in, because all they care about is their family. All they talk about is their family. And that's beautiful. No pluses or minuses. I mean, it's not better or worse. Some kinfolk get highly educated in the conventional sense, learn about all the eccentric few known obscure poetic, philosophical, scientific references from 200, 300, 2,000 years ago, and quote those, share those, and in doing that, visit those places eventually at some point somehow. But at the same time, get them get somewhat diffused so that they don't talk to their family at that point. They just talk to other people who are doing the same thing, who know the same thing, who value and support and compensate the same thing. So that's our narrative shape our migrations, and our migrations influence our being. So there's all that kind of interaction. Just being mindful of that. All we got to do is storage check again. All right, we're still on 4. And there's no guarantee, just because it might conk out before it gets to 2. So we're going very thin. We're playing very low. How can you go? We still got some further showing to. So that's some of the joints from recent experience. I have notes that I wrote just now that actually precipitated the decision to make this recording. But before I get to that, try to think of anything else at the moment. Wrote a lot of stuff about Christianity. That's another topic, though. So we're still on this topic of being ourselves. Loving ourselves, knowing ourselves, respecting ourselves, disciplining ourselves, sharing ourselves. It takes doing. It takes intentionality. All right. I might just start getting into this joint. I will say, just anecdotally, I'm in the process of writing timelines of world civilization, working with assignments that are somewhat beyond the intended completion time or date. It's the nature. So patience amidst the frustration or pressure or whatever else. One thing that's beneficial is just like a word to the wise is that when a project is taking longer than anticipated, it's beneficial to have some type of work product that shows that there is progression being made. So right now what we're looking at is simply doing the compilation of these timelines. Still working on Tabadi Gokada, Torah Bhagavad Gita, Digha Nikaya, Dhamma, Gospels, Quran, and Tao Te Ching, the newest version of the compilation of these holy scriptures. On the online publishing service of BLURB. Actually, the text is pretty much already complete. It's a matter of transferring to Blurb, and there's a hesitancy of having to deal with like the reformatting thing, and that's frustrating because it's already formatted. We did all the formattation. So, but it's not actually that. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. But anyways, that's one thing. Another thing. A few other projects are starting to be added to the list. We're working on trade negotiations. What else we got? Life continues. Being ourselves. All right. So I'm sitting here as I'm cultivating patience. I'm working not to get mad. Staying myself as much as possible. And I think to myself, how does one stay oneself again? Stories, songs. I think to myself, actually, again, this is the opium right now, and I consider just in doing this project, like when I'm looking at the histories of world civilization right now, specifically within the native traditions, native communities of this Western Hemisphere, looking at the pattern of just invasion. Um, how it's even just how it's told. But there are things that are revealed beyond, between the lines and everything, through the lines too. With all things to praise the Most High, and every kinfolk doing the best that they can. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm remembering some thoughts that I have as I'm doing this, that a little bit heavy. I think about whether I should share it. So I'll finish this thought, God willing. Then there are two things to share. This is just extra type stuff. Got all this? Cool beans. So there are patterns, and part of the patterns of the invasion from imperialism towards indigeneity around the world is gradual, and it's sharing things that provide people an advantage in the competition that people are already enveloped in. The native kinfolk are not angels, are not perfect beings on this continent before contact. And it's easy to lose sight of that because the genocide makes people look so much further innocent, and that sounds so crass and harsh. Compassion, matter of factly, okay. But point is to understand, to learn that, right, and recognize that genocide doesn't happen overnight. Generally speaking, at least historically, it happens through ingratiation and sharing things, and then people getting a little bit greedy and saying, oh, I can get this, and not seeing the consequences of that greed and the power that exists beyond, the power that exists in that stranger, of responding to that little bit of greed, that little bit of taking advantage or otherwise. And then once that door is open, it's like beyond people's control. It's already done. Now it's just a matter of unfolding. It's interesting to see some of the narratives, particularly from Ojibwe, about pale faces and prompting the migration further inward, inland, west, upriver. Very interesting, very revealing truth that shares is beneficial. Notion of pale faces. Okay. Now this is a harsh one. I'm not, and this is unfiltered, so it is what it is. But in that notion of pale faces, and again recognizing that the trifecta, people talk about guns, germs, and steel. That's so bias and BS. Peace and blessings, but it's still bias and BS. Here's the other one: guns, alcohol, and superiority. That's what we are observing as the trifecta. Guns, having an advantage of killing one's own enemies, one's own brethren, from a foreigner, getting foreign technology, and then relying upon that foreign technology to suppress one's own kinfolk in the rivalries, the blood rivalries. So that's one, guns. And we can look at that in all the different aspects of it in terms of weaponry and technology. The second one is alcohol. Oh, getting that drug, getting the opiate. Again, it's the opium warfare. Alcohol, whatever, it's alcohol. We know the devastation that it has within people of native heritage here in the Western Hemisphere. Alcohol. And then superiority. Having some narrative, either as a conqueror or as a slave, still holding on to the notion of being superior than the other side. And in that notion of superior, continually being subjected. The slave master is most definitely enslaved. The whole notion of being a superpower is evil. Superpower itself is evil. What you need power for? Be energy. Power is evil. That is usurping one's own self and infusing the energy of greed, hatred, delusion as a way of imposing one's delusion of ego upon others, other beings, of other influence. The whole endeavor of power. Power is evil. Energy. Harmony, peace. Who am I? I'm a piece of shit. I walk with God. No better or worse than anybody else. But it's just recognizing that power, in that pursuit of power, the person loses oneself. We talk about the narrative from Brazil, the brethren of African ancestry who becomes king. Now, this is not talking about power, but it's talking about how one loses oneself, even for whatever the cause is. There's this ceremony, and it's a Brazilian film that depicts this. So, give in, wait, give. Come on, what up? To give some pause about the credibility, whatever. But all that being said, what is conferred in that rendering of the film is that when that man, the African slave who becomes the king, establishes a kingdom in Brazil, in the land of the Guarani, in that ceremony, he relinquishes his personal earthly being and he becomes this sovereign whose responsibility is the well-being of his constituency, his subjects. So he loses himself. He sacrifices himself to become sovereign. And that's everybody. That's CEOs, that's presidents. And additionally, the degree of that sacrifice, the severity of the sacrifice might vary. But that's what's involved. And so that pursuit of power is that endeavor of losing oneself to have some type of ego-based, selfish control, influence, or perception of control over others. And that is an evilness. And I'm saying evil a lot, not just today, but recently. I'm observing that. Because I've never, throughout my life, of nearly half a century, I've stayed away from that significantly. So I'm being mindful of that. So there's that. Now we're at 3 now, to be honest, at GB's. So let's be mindful of that too. All right. And this is way low. This is way low. This is getting in beyond the yellow. We might be in the orange zone right now, actually. How long are we going to talk about it? Enough. So the pursuit of power is losing oneself. Earthly gains, and additionally, it's losing oneself. How do we keep oneself? Oh, okay. So the 2 things I mentioned before, the heavy one is this: we're talking about the pale face, white kinfolk, people of European ancestry. Now this is nasty, but here's a consideration. I'm just gonna say it with love and peace to everybody, genuinely, thoroughly, heavenly love and peace. May peace and blessings of the Most High Elohim be with all beings, European, African, around the world, all kinfolk. Full stop. With that being said, now here's what I'm going to say. And again, this is for thought, and I can try to explain it, but we're dealing with time at the moment, and I'm not trying to remember it. I'm not trying to forget it, but it's here at the moment, so I'm sharing it. Here it is. White people are death. Black people are murder. What kind of sense does that make? There was a koan from yesterday or the day before that no one, how's it go? No one is closer to everyone than anyone. That's a koan. That was an additional joint. Now the second joint from doing studies today is this. Oh, so when we talk about now this is from science, and I'm not necessarily the most convinced about science. I share the consideration that dinosaurs is a mythology, contrived mythology, a conspired mythology. Um, Doubts about the whole moon situation, and it's not even a big deal. Don't care. It's not a big deal one way or the other. Am aware of how these things are utilized to influence people's behavior. Oh, wow, we're gonna add this to it as well. Wow, we're gonna add this to it as well. Okay. All right. But all that being said, science talks about the glaciers, and the ice age. And additionally, I don't actually subscribe to that specifically. I don't deny it. But just the whole science does not have a very strong track record. Science is tremendous in terms of technology and ability to do things, but in terms of being right and getting things right, particularly when it comes to civilization history, science doesn't have a strong track record. And science doesn't, in terms of accuracy, because science is continually correcting itself if you wait long enough. So that's one thing. The other thing is that science doesn't have much scruples about how it does things and how it affects others. So because of that, I'm very leery about relying upon, or particularly like leaning and leaping upon the proclamations that science shares. And that's not hate. It's not intended as shade, but that's just facts. That being said, science talks. Don't negate it either. Can't negate it, because how do I know one way or the other? I know just as much as anybody else does. So, ice age. That's what people talk about within science. People talk about glaciers. We talk about the big lakes right here being the result of the glaciers in addition. So in that scenario, there's just the general presumption or the general logic. And again, I'm less versed in. It's been a while since I've had that conversation about all the different ages or whatever. I learned that back in middle school sometime. I also learned some things later that just like, you know what, nah. But anyways, in that logic, in presuming some accuracy within that, then that would suggest that the Earth is naturally going through a process of warming. Now, there may be details in that narrative of the ice age of it be going warmer and colder, or whatever else. But generally, if the Earth was at some point covered with ice and at this point is not, then that indicates that there is a process of warming at that point. Now, where the conditions may be at this moment in that process, that's something for scientists to speak further detail about. However, the consideration is this. In that logical presumption of warming, according to what science proclaims, then rather than humans causing quote-unquote global warming, rather than the smoking and pollution of humans causing global warming, there's the consideration of the natural occurring global warming causing human smoking and pollution. That's not meant as a veiled morbidity or whatever, but just observing that the prevalence of smoking and pollution in human civilization, and that perhaps being a consequence of whatever's happening with the earth. So maybe it's not necessarily humans that are doing it, but that humans are just manifesting what's being done to humans. How about that? What the warfare of the plants. Anyway, but why would the plants warfare on humans if humans are not causing it? Aika. Anyways, so I'm going to finish this writing thing. Then there was an addendum to this joint, and now we're getting serious low. 3.5. Somebody want to play in a less friendly way. So again, going back to this notion of staying ourselves, keeping ourselves, loving ourselves, being ourselves, knowing ourselves, supporting ourselves, sharing ourselves, disciplining ourselves, being ourselves. How do we do that? How do we cultivate that knowledge of self continually? So what we have here is the spiritual survival pack. And the spiritual survival pack simply consists of songs, stories, rituals, and ethics. That's cliche. So many may accuse me of being in terms of proclaiming that, but yo, it's perennial. It's continual. So, is water cliche? Maybe yes, and maybe that's okay. Um, anyways, song, stories, rituals, and ethics. This is our spiritual survival pack. Now, there are different components, or there are different versions of this spiritual survival pack. So, the primary spiritual survival pack of song, stories, rituals, and ethics are those song, stories, rituals, and ethics that are with you 24/7, that are never taken, that aren't taken away. You don't need anything for it. Wherever you are, you've got them with you. It's it's on your person. You know it by heart. You know the songs by heart. You know the stories by heart. You know the rituals by heart. Eating healthy, greens, water, exercise, sleep, postures of sleep, sitting, meditating, prayer, all those things is part of the spiritual survival pack. Ethics, how to talk with people, being nice, sharing, telling the truth, being peaceful, respecting women, respecting men. Sobriety, that's the spiritual survival pack. Songs, stories, rituals, and ethics that you carry with you, that you know by heart, that you can practice wherever you are. Lockup, psych ward, ivory towers, on the streets, on the bus, in the car, wherever you're at. Songs, stories, rituals, and ethics on your person. That's the first type of spiritual survival pack. The second type of spiritual survival pack is the portable on the go spiritual survival pack. So these are song, stories, rituals, and ethics, not in your devices, but that you can carry. A quick reference. If it's a book that you can carry in your pocket, a little pamphlet, sheets, a prayer that has a reminder, a mantra. Not your devices, not your phone, not your tablet, not your laptop. None of that. Just no electricity required, on the go. It might be prayer beads, whatever that is, that helps you to remember song, stories, rituals, and ethics beyond just what you have, whatever. It's on the go. It's what you can take with you. Maybe. Oh well, I'm getting ahead of myself now. So yeah, we're getting into that zone. And the thing is, like, it doesn't just say stop and just stop recording where one is. It stops. It cancels the whole thing. We're pushing on an hour, and I can see. So that's the second, portable. Now the third, spiritual survival pack, is your home reference library. So it's books, it's prayer material, whether it's a prayer shawl, like a talit, or something for performing salat, whether it's a cushion in performing samadhi, whether it's a yoga mat. It's those materials that you have in your home repertoire for doing your song, stories, rituals, and ethics. So that's the third version, which is the home reference library of your spiritual survival pack. Fourth version is the village shared facility. So sometimes our home reference library is comparatively modest. We can't be buying everything or whatever else. So right in the midst of our domicile, of where we reside, being able to walk just within a few minutes to go to do prayer, whether it's the masjid, whether it's a study center, a school, a library, but someplace outside of the house where we can access, again, not the devices, not getting online, not getting Wi-Fi. That's later. We're getting there. But in person, no electricity required. Village shared facilities. That's the next version of the spiritual survival pack. It's shared with the village. Members of the village can come together and participate with that. So that's the fourth kind. Now we get to the fifth kind. What was that? Online. This is the online version of the spiritual survival pack. So yes, now we can, you want to access all your favorite website and everything else. You want to connect with your stories, the mobile phone, computer, tablet, whatever. Tap into the vast resources of the world archives. That's the next version of the world, the spiritual survival pack. That's number 5. And then the final one, number 6, is at large. So this is like whatever else there is on this earth, whether you're traveling to a distant continent, whatever, everything else. So that's the next spiritual survival pack. And I'm gonna leave it at that. But anyways, maybe it should be some helpful, tangible kind of guidance in terms of how we retain ourselves. Because again, this is how we stay ourselves, to have that access to the stories and songs and rituals and ethics that support who we are, that affirm who we are. And so we can have versions of that available online, but when the online if we just have it online and we don't have it within ourselves, that makes us very much enslaved to online. And why online service fees in terms of having that service and devices and updates and all the culture about keeping up with the Joneses and everything else like that. And if we lose that, whoa, wait a minute, that's where we were getting our stuff from. So it's beneficial, but it's beneficial to have other accesses. And so again, the first one is what we have within ourselves: learning stones, memorizing stones. So again, regardless of where we are, regardless of what happens, we always have that with us, and therefore we always have that a greater sense of peace and assurance. Also, we jumping from assignment to assignment when we're in the foray of the wilderness, these roads of creation. We get hit with a lot of different things, temptation, threats, and everything else like that, and there's a lot of static. There's a lot of dissonance that tends to distance oneself from oneself, and so it's beneficial to have these song, stories, rituals, and ethics, these spiritual survival pack with oneself, and not that helps us to retain ourselves in those forays. I don't walk with a device. I don't have a phone. But when I'm walking around, I'm singing songs with myself. I'm singing songs to myself. I'm singing songs by myself, whatever it is. I'm singing it without relying upon other materiality, whatever, for those songs. Helps to keep my focus on positivity, affirmational vibration, and also a sense of peace and confidence and independence. Not having to rely upon a device to get that sense of peace, and additionally, and therefore don't have to worry about paying the device's bill at any time soon. It's with me. Now, it might not be as glorious, might not be as popular as whatever is being shown through the devices. However, there's a constancy. So, and then that helps us build, and that helps us identify, you know what, I was walking the other day and I thought about that story. It would have been nice to have that book with me so I could remember that. I should get it at the home library. There it is. And whatever is not available in the home library, I need to find a website where this is available. I need to have a copy of it on my computer so I can access it with the electricity. So anyways, that's a consideration. Seriously, we're getting low. Sorry, there's that. No, that was pretty much what I had to share for the moment. That's what Precipitates is recording, basically. But now that I am recording, I'm going to share this. Within recent days, this past week, I have another challenging experience involving my Morgan and kinfolk, the predators, the crocodiles at the watering hole, being predatory towards people who are going to the eateries. Um, and another now the circumstances, at least with the brethren who's doing the predatoriness, that was comparatively copacetic. I communicate to him directly when I see him talk to my mom. I went into an establishment to retrieve something, and when I returned back, there he is talking with her, and I'm all types. Here we go. So then I talk with him directly. I'm just like, look, not trying to have this right now, and he's not being disrespectful directly. I mean, just he doesn't have to do too much to be provocative, just because just seeing that scene is triggering. But and I'm doing my best to be calm, and I just explain to him what some of the challenges is, and explain to him like we collectively, him, I, all kinfolk, um, are better than that, and can do better than that, and need to do better than that. And he seemed to recognize, speaking specifically referencing what I'm talking about. He seemed to recognize that I have an idea what I'm talking about and listening. So I appreciate that. And I'm part of the training is probably just being agreeable and not getting in arguments. But he didn't push it. He continues on. But anyways, at that point, it's already it's a lot of damage is already done, and there is a disagreement or a discussion between myself and my more accordingly. Um, but the fact is that these aggressions are continuing, and the hyenas continue sniffing and taking little swipes in additionally. And so these hyenas being the United States, the citizens of the United States, which is the vast majority of the kinfolk that are around here. Again, peace and blessings to all kinfolk, but have to recognize you're doing this. You're not innocent. You're part of this. You're not part of it. You are this. So, we're at this point where it's necessary to articulate this. And what I'm articulating here, what I and I are articulating here, is this. It is a financial meteorological advisory. The United States of America should prepare for a significant economic loss. Full stop. The advisors and manipulators and influencers around my war should prepare for a significant economic loss. My Moor herself should prepare for a significant economic loss. This is with all peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. This is all with peace and blessings to all kinfolk. Peace and blessings to my Moor. Peace, love, and blessings to my Moor. Peace, love, and blessings to all the advisors, manipulators, and influencers around my Moor. Peace, love, and blessings to all of the United States of America. Prepare for a significant economic loss. Full stop. That is my guidance to share. That is what I'm guided to share. It is other than my guidance to provide much further commentary or explanation at this point. What people around the world within the United States can recognize is the extreme, severe, and woeful disrespect and abuse that the United States of America commits against life. So there is an infinity of rationalizations available for extrapolation from that statement of facts. This is communicated without malice, as best can be, without want or intentionality. It is communicated with sincere, genuine, authentic interest and devotion to the well-being of all life, to the well-being of all life within the United States of America. The well-being of the life of the advisors, manipulators, and influence around Mymore, and the life and well-being of Mymore. That's what it is. So, one of the things that is appropriate for me to share is that many people in the United States of America, around the world too, but particularly in the United States of America, many of the advisors, manipulators, and influencers around Mymore, and Mymore herself, communicate in affinity for peace and harmony, well-being amongst the many peoples of the world, the different cultures and religions. But many people seem to have a limit in terms of how much trust people put in that peace. And it becomes, in many ways, a vacation type of thing, a hobby type of thing, an extracurricular type of thing, almost like a side chick type of thing. And when it comes down to actually trusting and investing and cooperating with something, resort and revert to the alliances and collusions and atrocities instead of wholeheartedly trusting and investing and practicing that peace. So when kinfolk such as myself share things, there's often that pat on the head, oh, that's nice, and maybe support for a little bit, but when it comes down to actually doing it, nah. And so that's understandable. Who am I? I've already said. However, that being said, there arrives the occasion, the perceived necessity, the eventuality of proof of the quote-unquote power of peace, the efficacy and the follow-through, the strength of peace, the consequences of violating peace. Some people sometimes need to see that. So there are a number of different ways that is done. There are a number of different ways we are able to do that. There are many ways in which we are restricted from doing it. We're not permitted of engaging in violence and atrocities as a way of proving peace. We can defend ourselves. We can lock kinfolk up. We can remove kinfolk from the public sphere indefinitely. There are things we can do. At this moment, what I am permitted to do and what I'm guided to do is, other than making those types of threats or actions or directives per se. I ain't the only one either. We are concentrating this communication specifically towards economics, and in a way that people experience the seriousness and the consequences of the severe, woeful disrespect and abuses against life. Prepare for a significant economic loss. We're not wishing this on anyone. We are not offering this as a prophetic message of proving ourselves. per se. All things are revealed and explained on their own. Such is the nature of truth. So, what is communicated now is an urging of mindfulness and a somewhat provocation of sobriety to be able to better see the connection within our relations and the cause and effect of our actions. That statement is strong and it's direct. That was whew. So all things in praise of the Most High. But that's what it is. And with that being said, that's where we at. Peace.